righty. We have been getting some good questions in, and I am gonna be on my phone taking them down, so this is great. Let's start off here. What counts as sex?
So this question seems very clear to me, but I also know that most of the time when I hear this question, and the reason I'm responding like this is most of the time when I hear this question, it's how far can I go without crossing the line?
Yeah.
It's like, what counts as sex? Because, like, is it okay if, like, I just give him a hand job in the back of the car? Or, like, what counts as sex?
Yeah.
And so, like, I want to be clear that it's not about, like, setting a specific line as, like, this is where, and I'm not going to draw that line for you. I'm not going to, because it's not going to be encouraging the healthy attitude towards sex that we want to encourage.
Yeah.
So when we talk about this, what counts as sex, what I would say is if it is not something that is respecting or loving your partner, your, like, whoever you're dating, in a way that is honoring God and maintaining physical purity and also maintaining that intimacy for marriage, then flee. Go back to that same, like, verse. Flee. Flee from sexual immorality. Don't dance around the line and go, okay, well, like, I'm right here, so I might as well. Flee.
Awesome. If you have sex before marriage, will you go to hell?
That one's all yours.
What determines whether someone goes to hell or not is, as Christians, this is what we believe is not based on our actions, but our faith. We're saved by grace through faith. This is not a work of our own, but a gift by God. That's what the scriptures teach. And so, no, just, if you've had sex before marriage, are you going to hell? Just like, no. Does that mean that, then we should go ahead and live as we want to because we're not going to face the ultimate consequence? No. Paul actually talks about that. Where grace abounds, then should I just keep on sinning? He says, by no means, absolutely not. Because there's a principle in which we live our life where if we're truly honoring Jesus with our life, we honor him in everything. But if we're choosing not to honor him in some areas of our life, guess what? That's the trend that will continue to lead you to a place where you will find yourself in hell, where you will no longer have that relationship with God because it's something that you've now done. You have now made a choice, and that choice has now led to you going, why do I don't really care about this, God. I care about my interests first, because you're constantly putting yourself first. So, no, having sex before marriage doesn't go to hell. Yes, it is a sin, but it doesn't send you to hell, because that whole conversation is about who your faith is in. That's how you're saved.
Yeah, I think I would phrase it as, would you go to hell? Maybe. It depends on where your relationship with God is. So it's not about the sex, it's about your relationship with Jesus.
Yeah. Is oral sex allowed in marriage if both parties consent? It falls into the category of sex, so is there any Bible verse that can help understand those boundaries a little better?
Yeah, so this is a fun one. There's actually two verses that come to mind that a lot of people do interpret to mean oral sex. So I'm just going to pull them up. And if you'll give me a second. They're actually in Song of Solomon. So, Song of Solomon 2, verse 3. It says, like an apple tree among the trees of the woods, so is my beloved among the sons. I sat down in his shade with great delight, and his fruit was sweet to my taste. Song of Solomon, chapter 4, verse 16 says, awake, O north wind, and come, O south. Blow upon my garden, that its spices may flow out. Let my beloved come to his garden and eat its pleasant fruits.
Yep, that's the Bible.
So if it's not clear, like these passages, if referring to oral sex, which many people do take them to refer to oral sex, because this is a book that was written about romantic love, and it does have a lot of physical love elements in there. It is not prohibited. It is something that is totally okay and totally like acceptable. So if it's something that the two of you can agree on, then like feel free, go for it. But it is important that it is agreed upon. If someone does not feel comfortable, doesn't enjoy it, doesn't whatever, like it's not something that you can force and be like, well, it says in Song of Solomon, like that's not the way that we handle those things either. So absolutely, if you can agree on it and it's something that you both want to do, then go for it within the context of marriage.
Yeah. There's another question. Is it a sin for me to spill my seed?
Okay.
That is from Genesis chapter 38.
Can I take that one?
Yeah, verse 8 to 10. This is what it says. Then Judah said to Onan, go into your brother's wife and perform the duty of a brother-in-law to her, and raise up offspring for your brother. But Onan knew that the offspring would not be his. So whenever he went into his brother's wife, he would waste the semen on the ground, so as not to give offspring to his brother. And what he did was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and he put him to death also.
Yeah, so I did want to touch on this earlier when I was talking about contraceptives, and so I have an answer prepared about this, so I will take it. But this passage has often been used by people to be like, okay, well, so then I can't pull out. I can't use that as a form of, like, you know, a contraceptive or having, you know, birth control. The passage, if you read it, is pretty clear. Like, you can understand what's going on here. This was a story of, you know, Judah, one of the 12 tribes of Israel, this man, Judah. He had sons. His son married a woman, Tamar, and was evil. He did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, and he was killed. And because of that, based on what their law said at the time, and this is not just any law, this is law given by God, Onan, who was his next brother, was supposed to marry Tamar, take her on as his wife, and give her a child who would be Er's child. So as much as it was Onan's, like, you know, sperm, it was Onan's, like, seed, it was not his child. It would be Er's child. And Onan didn't like that. He didn't want to have a child who was not his own. He didn't want to have, like, kind of extend his brother's lineage, and he didn't honor Tamar by doing what he was commanded to do. That is actually when it says he did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. It is that it was referring to. It's not that he spilled his seed. And in fact, when you read it, it says that whenever he went into her, meaning that he had sex with her multiple times. So there was probably an element of like, okay, is he going to do the right thing this time? Is he going to do the right thing this time? And he didn't. And so because of that, that was actually what he did. That was evil, and that was why he was killed. It is not something that, like, any man who pulls out will therefore be killed. It's not a bad thing or an evil thing. It is something that people can do and choose to do, but it's not, like, that's not the act that was referred to as, like, evil.
Yeah, that's good. Really good. One question came in. If you find out your partner cannot carry life, how does this impact your marital sex life? That is so situational. I think it's important and clear to communicate this, that just because you might be infertile and unable to procreate does not mean that you are less glorifying God as a married couple at all. We live in a broken world, a fallen world, a sin-filled world, and God sees us, understands us, and God cares so much more about our heart than he does the book of the law. That's why Jesus came, to save us by grace. And so I think there's too much judgment when it comes to, oh, you're infertile, you have a curse about you, and all of this other stuff. And it doesn't necessarily have to be that case. I mean, we will pray, and we believe that God can do miracles. He does miracles. Absolutely, but that doesn't mean that you are less than. What does it mean for your marital, sex life? My hope is that if that was your situation, that you would still be able to find intimacy with your partner. I understand that there can be baggage and brokenness and a lot of hurt feelings, and just, I actually know of one case where they were having a hard time being intimate because it only reminded them of what they could never have, or at least believed they could never have. And long story short, they met an individual who I'll leave unnamed, and this person was someone who loved Jesus, which began praying for them and helping them through other means. And I kid you not, they actually became pregnant, and that was purely God's hand. And so they were able to find intimacy, from what I was told. They were able to find intimacy even before that, but God still blessed them over and above. Now, that's not everybody's situation. And I just want to be clear that my hope, I think God's hope, is that you would still be able to be intimate with your partner, even if it's man, we know that we can't have children, but we can still honor God through our union. So, okay, let's do this one. Should physical attraction be there immediately in a new relationship with someone, or is it something that can be built over time?
I think it's kind of both. There needs to be some level of attraction, and then that attraction also grows. I don't think when you enter into a relationship, especially we're not dating celebrities out here. We're not dating people who have all day to just eat right and work out and get Botox and do all the things so that they look the best all the time. And so keeping that in mind, it's that's what you're comparing to, your real life partner is not going to match up to that. But you start with that baseline attraction, and you build that attraction to the point where your partner is the most attractive person to you. So it's okay, whoever it is, whoever that celebrity crush is, could walk through the doors, and I would still say no, because that's the guy. That's number one. So that's how it needs to be, but it doesn't necessarily start off like that.
Yeah, it's good. Okay, can you maintain a sex frequency if you are in a season of fighting? It's hard. Because it's so unique. It just depends. I think of the example of a show, we often quote here at Agape Night. I think of How I Met Your Mother, and how Lily and, what's the guy's name? Marshall, thank you. Have this technique where they can go pause, right? And put a pause to any fight, right? And do whatever they need to do, then unpause. And as much as it sounds oh, that's so healthy, I think that actually can be very unhealthy, because it can be controlling. It's also kind of choosing to ignore certain things, and just fearful of confrontation and not being able to have that conversation that you need to have. The one healthy side to it is no argument, or at least what I'm assuming in that pattern is that no argument is too big that it would be their relationship on the line, which is the one silver lining, which I'm assuming also. But yeah, so I think it's pivotal that you deal with your fights before you're having sex.
Yeah, I think we talked about it. Physical intimacy is grown from emotional intimacy. So if you're not in a place where you're feeling emotionally close to somebody, then it's not the best place to be entering into a physically intimate act. However, I think that there should never be something so big, or a fight or a season that is so rough that you cannot love each other in that way to some extent, even if it's not as frequent or as regular, but to still love each other in that way and to still experience that physical intimacy.
Okay. You guys are sending in some good questions. You mentioned we should be intentional and put effort into looking good for our partner, maintaining attractiveness and attraction to our partner. What is the difference, or where is the line between wanting your partner to look more attractive and being shallow or selfish? It's a good question, because you don't want to be the shallow and selfish and, bro, why can't you look like Brad Pitt? And maybe I'm dating myself, I don't know, Leonardo DiCaprio, or I don't know, whoever, you know. And also, you know, kind of desiring, you know, attractiveness. I think this is one of those things that, as much as you desire, you know, hey, I want the other person to be more attractive, I think one of the most healthiest practices here is to work on you and let you be the concern of you and let that person care for you by working on them. Rather than, you know, as much as you might have the temptation and the feeling like, hey, listen, you know, I want you to, I don't know, wear skinny jeans or baggy jeans or whatever's in, you know, work on you. And if you have an open line of communication where your partner is like, I want to know what's stylish, that's a welcome conversation, right? Say if it's a type of haircut, you know, that you're like, oh, I want this type of haircut, or, oh, you know, I like this color. You know, I think it's important that we both are aware of what our partners like, and we have their interests at heart. And if we are doing it right, where I'm concerned about like what you like, and so I want to look good for you, and if you're concerned about what I like and you want to look good for me, you meet each other without almost like creating this atmosphere. You feel like you're going to the principal's office where you have to like give a report for this is how I've done, how I've improved, or things like that. It can become unhealthy. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
So one of like when I read this, it says, where is the line between wanting your partner to look more attractive? And I think I'm a little bit concerned with the wording, just because it sounds to me like you're like, my partner is not attractive to me. I want them to look like something else, and so I want them to change. Versus, I want my partner to put in more intentional effort and take care of themselves a little bit better, because they may just not put in that much effort right now. And so I'm going to communicate that to them. Or maybe it's like, oh, they changed their hair and I preferred it one way or the other. Like we have conversations all the time, and I will always, and you guys know this, I make the joke about Reuben shaving his beard off. I'm like, I never want him to shave his beard off.
Doing it tomorrow.
So like, we have preferences, and we share that. We have open lines of communication. There are times where he will tell me like, oh yeah, like I really like your hair like that. And I will ask, because I actually want to engage that conversation and go, do you like it better like this or like that? And have a healthy line of communication open where he can share his preferences. He can say, you know what, I didn't really like it when you had it like that, in a nice way. But we have we have that communication, we have that conversation. It sounds to me like this is beyond just I would like them to put in intentional effort. We had a conversation actually a couple of years ago, I remember very clearly, where I said to Reuben, I'm like, hey, can I share something? Like, I feel like you don't really dress up for me anymore. You used to dress up for me a lot. I feel like you don't do that anymore. I feel like you're in sweats a lot of the time.
And y'all know I love my sweats. Let's just be real.
And he was like, oh, like, I didn't know that bothered you. And so he was intentional, not about like, he was still wearing sweats around the house all the time, but he was intentional about like when we're going out, like even if we're going to the mall to go shopping, he would put on something nice, because he was like, I want you to feel like I am trying. And so that was a conversation that we had, because I was able to share that and express that to him openly. But I don't, like, this sounds to me like I don't think my partner is attractive, which I would say, okay, so then there's something actually on your part that you need to do. There's something on your part where you need to like kind of capture that attraction that you initially had for your partner. So maybe there is an element of effort and you need to go have that conversation or preference, and you say, okay, I liked it better when you had your hair like this or like that or whatever. But going, okay, so I actually should be attracted to my partner regardless, because it is based on emotional intimacy, because it is based on love and foundation of loving union. And so because of that, I'm going to kind of remind myself of the aspects of like their physical appearance that I do find attractive, and focus on those things and rebuild some of that attraction there, rather than just putting all the onus on your partner that, oh, they have maybe aged or gained weight or whatever, and therefore they're no longer attractive.
I think we're going to call it there because we went on for a while and we have a lot more questions. But thank you so much for being here. Have a great night.